Healing Leaves is a community-based relation intervention program organization which basically focus on youth development, job creation, education, entrepreneurship, development, and also offering support to children affected by HIV and AIDS. And then over the years, they basically have worked together with government, other NGOs, because after all, when you are a community-driven organization, it's not something you can do on your own, and that is why partnership is so important. So like I said, they've worked with government, NGOs, as well as national and international partners to support those in need. And the mission of Healing Leaves is to restore dignity to those who have experienced trauma, adversity, and also shame through community-based relation intervention programs. So right now, talking to us a little bit more about this is Martha Kutsia de Beer, who has an honors degree in journalism, and she's just going to be talking to us a little bit more about the work that they do render at Healing Leaves. So good afternoon, Martha. How are you today?
Good afternoon. I'm very good, thanks. And yourself?
And it's only a pleasure. So, Martha, if you can just provide a little bit more background of what initiated Healing Leaves in the beginning.
So Healing Leaves has actually been around for quite a long time. My parents, Dini and Andre Kotze, actually started Healing Leaves in 1997, really as a way to give back to the communities that they were a part of. And for me growing up, it was always a very big part of our lives, this understanding that if you are fortunate enough to have more than you need, then it's always your responsibility to give to those who are less fortunate. I did do an honors in journalism, as you say, but then I went on to do my master's degree in human rights. And after that, I really felt that I want to get involved. I want to really see how we can grow Healing Leaves and how we can just move forward to help as many people as possible.
Mate, and as you basically saw also in the news, like a lot of children are now currently disappearing, and we are also approaching Protection Week. So also looking at the work or the focus base of Healing Leaves that advocates for the youth and also trying to upskill them and to empower the youth. So Healing Leaves has grown into an organization that is more focused on the development of the youths. So if you can maybe take us through the process of the programs that you do offer to assist these youth to upskill themselves and also to also know their rights, because I think human rights is very important, and that is the problem that we are faced with. Too many people don't actually know what their rights are.
Definitely. It has been a process for us. So we do try and support learners that we identify in underprivileged communities, try and help them find bursaries, try and help them to afford, school fees, maybe clothing, stationery, things like that they need. But in the last couple of years, our focus has shifted a lot to childhood trauma. As you rightly said, our children are really having a rough time. It's not easy to be a child in South Africa, especially in the communities where people are not as fortunate. And so one of our flagship programs at the moment is actually our HELP program, and that focuses specifically on training parents, teachers, community workers, people from churches, for instance, who very much are in contact with these children on a day-to-day basis and teaching them what is childhood trauma? What are the symptoms you should be looking out for? What are really practical ways that you can support children in your care or children in the community that you work with if they have experienced trauma or the trauma is ongoing? So for us, a big part of empowering the children is placing adults in their lives that are safe, that are educated about trauma, about the many difficulties that our children face. Like you said, educating them about what these children's rights are. And then these adults then go out to these children and have the opportunity to work with them and to empower them so that not only are the children now with safe adults, but also the children know this is what I can do to help myself. These are ways that I can support myself. And so that is a really big focus for us at the moment.
And then, Marte, also taking into account, like you've mentioned, it's very hard out there for children. And so often there's many factors at play. It can be substance abuse at play or domestic abuse. And this is how children tend to grow up with these type of trauma that you are exposed to on a day-to-day basis. So would you say it is important to get the necessary assistance in order to deal with that trauma? Because I've seen in some cases where, let's say, a child has been exposed to some sort of trauma, whether it's domestic abuse or so forth, or substance abuse, and then they grow up and then they tend to become that perpetrator in the long run because that is all that I've been subjected to. So do you think it is important to find that helping hand for their child, or for their child to deal with that process in order to heal also and to overcome? Because sometimes you don't actually know that you've been exposed to trauma, but your actions later in life will basically show, okay, but you are doing the same thing that you've been subjected to when you were a child.
No, what you're saying now is very, very true. I think as adults, it's easy for us to forget that what children are exposed to, if they don't see any alternative to that, if they are not taught that there's an alternative to, for instance, being in a relationship where there is domestic violence or living in a household where there's a lot of substance abuse, that becomes their normal. And so that is why often we see children grow up out of these circumstances and they kind of show the same behavior, the same toxic patterns that they were exposed to growing up. And so it is so important for parents, for, anyone working with these children to realize that actually it is your responsibility as the safe and loving adult to show them, there are alternatives, and also to help them heal the hurt that those circumstances may have caused them. Because a lot of times things like substance abuse, unhealthy relationships, even turning to crime sometimes can be a way that these children try and heal their own pain. It's a distraction. It's something that makes them feel empowered or that makes them feel better. And so that's why we often see children turn to those destructive habits when they are older. And so we don't even just want to work with the children. That's why we focus on the adults, because the adults need to realize what traumas are in your life maybe that are causing you to act in a certain way, to continue engaging in behaviors that is not healthy for your child, even though you're not purposefully hurting them. But without realizing it, your own personal hurt is causing trauma in that child. And so it's really about healing families as a whole and trying to break that cycle of one generation passes on their trauma to the next, and we just carry on passing those things over without anyone stopping and saying, actually, it ends here. I'm going to heal for my future generations, and so that we don't continue with this behavior.
And you still tune into Sakisi's We're Building the Nation, Bodinasi. We are speaking to Marte Kutsia de Beer, and she is from Healing Leaves. Marte, and then I want to know, if you can maybe also convey advice, like you say, you also do tend to empower the adult. Is there any tool sets you can basically convey now to our listeners on how to better equip themselves in order to be able to engage with the child? Because especially if you take it from a disadvantaged community, or you look at the Cape Flats and so forth, the way adults tend to approach or deal with children, it's not on a nice manner. Is there maybe certain tips you can convey in order to engage with that child? Because it's not easy to communicate with a child, firstly, because that child needs to feel I can trust the individual that is approaching me.
No, definitely. That is why, people are always welcome to contact us. We do try and provide our training at a very low cost to make it as accessible as possible to people. We're also at the moment working on recording it so that it can be available online, so that people don't have travel costs. We can again offer it at a very good price then, because there's no extra costs for us. But I think if I have to just think off the top of my head to some advice for parents, is start with yourself. If you know that there are certain things, certain behaviors, hurt from your childhood, maybe it results in you becoming angry very quickly, maybe it's difficult for you to see things from other people's perspectives, I would always say parents need to start with their own healing and looking at what is there maybe in your life that is causing you maybe, or is acting as a blockage to you connecting with your child. I think also just something to keep in mind is that children's primary desire is to feel safe and to feel loved. It doesn't matter how many mistakes you make, because you are going to make mistakes. We're all human. But as long as that child knows they are safe with you and that you love them, there is very little that the two of you in that relationship will not be able to work through. But the moment that they feel, my dad is too angry, for instance, I can't talk to him, he's not safe, or, my mom just dismisses anything I say, I can't go to her, that is when you're really going to have a breakdown in the relationship, and it's going to be so much harder for you to connect with that child and to give them the help that you want to give them.
So as an organization, do you also do outreach programs within the community to equip the community?
Yes, we do a lot of work with communities. We've been invited to various provinces, to schools, to church groups, children's homes, where we really try and work with people to give them this knowledge. And, the thing is, most children, especially children who have suffered extreme trauma, ideally, we would want all these children to be in contact with a social worker, to maybe be in contact with someone like a child therapist, for instance, or even a psychiatrist if it's very severe. But the reality is, and especially as you mentioned, in our communities where there aren't a lot of funding, people don't have money, that's a challenge. And so that's why we created this program to say, parents, even if you don't have the money available to send your children to all these people, there are certain practical things that you can do at home that is already going to help them heal. That's not to say that it's replacing therapy or it's replacing social workers, but it's a tool that the parents have at least until they can get the child to someone like that or until there are possibilities. And so for us, community outreach is very important.
And then just before I let you go, as an outsider, for instance, maybe seeing something is happening within your community or you are concerned about the child, because in the world that we're living in today, currently, it is a child taking care of the rest of the siblings. So that happens a lot in many households. Your first instinct is you don't want to report that child taking care of the younger siblings and so forth because they're going to be removed from the household if the parents or the caregiver is not equipped to take care of the children. They tend to take the children away, and we don't want the kids to be split up. So you as an outsider, what advice do you have for that outsider to assist that child in that process, and also to make sure that that child remains with the other siblings, but it is not the priority of that child to take care of its younger siblings, because you're still a child?
That is a very difficult thing, and it is something that we deal with a lot in South Africa because there are so many child-headed households. I think the big thing that you as an outsider adult need to decide is, as much as we want the children to stay together, is it a safe situation for them? Is it a situation where, yes, they are able to make do, no physical or other harm is coming to the children while they're there? In that case, I would say, try and galvanize the community. Try and say, okay, maybe there's a church nearby that can help them in some way. Maybe a group of parents can get together and say, we volunteer to help the younger ones with homework, or we can volunteer 1 or 2 meals in a week. Really practical ways that you can help them and take some of the burden off of that older child who is now filling the parent role. But I think also it is important for us to look at, is it a safe environment? Is it a good environment? I think globally, we've lost that sense of community where we say, oh, I see there are children in distress. I know they're not my children, but I am still going to try and do what I can to help them, even if I can't fix their situation entirely. And I think if we could move back to that mindset of actually, they're in my community, I do have a responsibility if I am able to help. And even if you can just provide 1 meal a week and someone else can provide 2, someone else can maybe give money now and then for maybe to buy school shoes or whatever is needed, all together, the community can make a big difference in those children's lives.
Definitely, and I agree with you fully, but I do agree with you with the Ubuntu spirit, bringing that back. But in some instances, it's not always that easy because their parents, if they are on substance, they would feel, I don't want anyone's help, so I don't want you to come close to my child, and that basically creates another problem on its own. And I think that is one of the reasons why most people tend to just stay clear of the situation at hand.
No, definitely. That does make it difficult. And that's why I say if there's a situation where, let's say, the parents are abusive or because of substance abuse and problems like that, the children aren't able to get proper care. I think, unfortunately, it does become a reality that you are going to have to get, a social worker or someone involved because they have more authority in order to try and resolve that situation or see how we can take the best care of the children if the parents are kind of withholding care or they don't want people to help the children.
Mate, social media handles, if people want more information, where do they go about?
Yes, please. We have a Facebook page. People can find us under Healing Leaves on Facebook. We also have an Instagram page, also Healing Leaves. And then we also have a website, www.healingleaves.co.za. On all of those places, they'll find our contact details if they want to get in touch with us. We post a lot on there, share what we're busy with. We have blog posts that sometimes have really good information and advice for parents. So please follow us, engage with us. And we'd love to support people in any way that we can.
Definitely. And as we are approaching Protection Week, is there anything specific you as an organization are planning?
At the moment, we are working on, as I said, to digitize our training so that we can make it available to people across the country. For us, really, it's an ongoing process. We don't have anything specific planned just for then, because for us, the work is every month and it's constant. And as long as there are so many children that are in need, the work doesn't really stop ever.
Definitely. Any last words from your side?
I think I just really encourage people to reach out to us. If they have questions, if there are concerns. I have had people reaching out to me where, I've helped them make contact with a social worker or with a psychiatrist or a psychologist, someone who could assist more. We're always looking to build connections with community groups, with churches, with other NGOs. So please make contact with us. If anything that we've said today really resonated with you, you want more information, we're always here. We'll respond as quickly as we can, because really it's something we believe that, if some of our community are suffering, then it's all of our responsibility to help and fix it. And we really do want to help people as much as possible.
Thank you very much, Mate, for taking the time to speak to us today. Have a beautiful day further. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
And that was Mate Kutsia de Beer, and she is from Healing Leaves, and she was just telling us a little bit more about the excellent services that they do render to assist children, and not just children, but they also work with their parents as well.